Hello, Barber Project people. I have not made a video in a while. I kind of took the summer off to be with my daughters, and now I'm back. So I'm picking up in the middle of the book that we were reading, which was Nancy Drew's The Clue in the Crumbling Wall. And I believe we stopped after chapter 12, so I'm going to pick up on chapter 13. And it's a new school year for some of us, so I thought it was a good day to start back with my Barber Project reading, and I hope all is well. Chapter 13 is titled In Search of Clues. Nancy was up early the next morning. She had been too weary the night before to attempt any packing, so she did it now and then skipped downstairs. When she appeared in the kitchen, Hannah Gruen said cheerfully, "Good morning. The mail came in a few minutes ago. There's a letter I think you'll want to see. It's on the living room table." Nancy ran to get it. A glance at the handwriting caused her pulse to quicken. The letter was from Ned Nickerson. Hurrying to a window seat, Nancy eagerly opened the envelope. She admired Ned Nickerson and had missed him since he had gone to South America. "I can't say I'm having a good time," Ned wrote, "but I'm doing some interesting work. I miss you and all the fun we had together. Remember those mysteries we used to solve? You did most of the work, and I went along for company. I'm willing to bet that you're head over heels in a mystery this very minute, right?" "Right you are, Ned," Nancy laughed happily as she tucked the missive away for another reading later on. "How I wish Ned were here to help me." Mr. Drew came downstairs and said they ought to eat at once and be off. Nancy hoped they might stop for a few minutes at Mrs. Fenimore's to gather any additional information the woman might have about her sister. "We practically go past her house," she said. "All right, we'll drop in for a few minutes," the lawyer agreed reluctantly, "but let's make it snappy. I must be in Hampton before noon." Mrs. Fenimore was delighted to see Nancy again. When the girl presented her father, the woman expressed pleasure that she had brought him with her. "We're en route to Hampton," Mr. Drew explained, coming straight to the point. "Nancy thought that you might be able to tell us a little more about your sister's disappearance. We understand that you believe your sister went to Hampton." "Why, yes," she replied. "I don't actually know that Floriana went there, but I did see a ticket to Hampton, which she had bought." "I've given your sister's strange disappearance considerable thought," Mr. Drew confessed. "It strikes me that she must have had a definite reason for abandoning her career." "Oh, Floriana loved her work," Mrs. Fenimore protested. "Of course she was tired and run down, but a few weeks' rest should have put her in good health again. We know that after leaving here, Floriana never danced again. Now, if she still lives, she must have earned a living by some means." "Did she have any special aptitude for anything except dancing? Could she teach music, for example?" the lawyer asked. Mrs. Fenimore shook her head. "Floriana was interested in nothing except dancing. Oh, yes, I might add she loved gardening. My sister was very fond of flowers and liked to grow them." She sighed as she added, "In that respect, Joan takes after her aunt." "Is Joan at school?" Nancy asked. "Yes," replied Mrs. Fenimore. "The child worries me," she said with deep concern. "Lieutenant Masters had to come here yesterday to get a plant that had been taken from the park. Oh, I've reprimanded Joan for doing such things, but it does no good." "I suppose Lieutenant Masters talked to Joan about it?" Mr. Drew inquired. "Yes. She insisted that she had not taken the plant, that Jetty Hooker had given it to her." Lieutenant Masters then went next door to speak to Jetty. This report about Joan upset Nancy. The child had promised her that she would not play with the boy, but apparently she had done so. "I'm sure your daughter is telling the truth," she remarked, but in her own heart, she was not so certain of this. As soon as she should have time, she must talk it over with Lieutenant Masters. Since Mrs. Fenimore had told everything she knew regarding her long-missing sister, Nancy and Mr. Drew bade her goodbye and left the house. "I have a theory I didn't mention," the lawyer commented as he led the way to the car. "Floriana may have married after she left home. In that event, she would have had some means of support. But, Dad, wouldn't she have notified Mrs. Fenimore of such a marriage? She had no apparent reason for keeping her whereabouts a secret. Quite true. Well, perhaps we'll run into a few clues at Hampton. Mr. Drew entered the parked car. Nancy was about to follow when she observed a thin, sharp-faced woman with unkempt hair hanging out clothes in the yard adjoining the Fenimore cottage. That must be Jetty Hooker's mother, she told herself. Nancy's attention centered not upon the woman, but on the clothing she was pinning to the line. A blue riding shirt looked strangely familiar to her. If that isn't George's stolen shirt, then it's one just like it, she told herself grimly. Acting impulsively, Nancy walked over to the yard. The woman saw her coming and eyed her suspiciously. Is Jetty here? The girl inquired, her manner pleasant. No, he ain't, the woman snapped. He's at school, same as every day. Working up to the subject, Nancy asked her if Jetty liked to go boating on the river. All boys play around the water, Mrs. Hooker answered. Then, as if fearful she had revealed too much, she added, Jetty ain't been on the river lately, though. Nancy was convinced the woman was not telling the truth. She was certain, too, that the shirt was the same one she herself had hung on a tree limb to dry at Heath Castle. It was a very expensive make, one not likely to have been purchased by Mrs. Hooker. At that instant, a gust of wind came and turned the garment in such a way that the label on it became visible. It said Bon Ton. That's a good-looking riding shirt, Nancy commented, trying not to show her excitement. Do you ride? The woman ignored the question. Ain't I got a right to have nice things, same as other folks? She demanded defiantly. Why, certainly, Nancy answered in an even tone. You must be another one of those snoopy policewomen. Well, I won't talk to you, snapped the woman. Snatching the shirt from the line, Mrs. Hooker hurried into the house and slammed the door. Returning to the car, Nancy related the conversation to her father. Though he agreed with his daughter that her suspicion was justified, he thought her method of approach hardly warranted a confession from Mrs. Hooker. You didn't expect the woman to break down and admit her son's own theft, did you, Nancy? Now you have put her on her guard. Oh, I never thought of that, Dad, Nancy agreed. I might have had a better luck if I had talked to Jetty. Mr. Drew had expected to reach their destination by noon and had not counted on a long detour which extended the trip many miles. It was well toward 3 o'clock in the afternoon when he and Nancy arrived at the Hamptons' one and only hotel. Not much time left to work, the lawyer remarked after the bags had been put into their suite. But we can get in a little investigating before dinner time. Meet you here at 6, Nancy. Good luck. The young detective started off. She decided to make her first call at the railroad station to which Floriana was supposed to have come. The agent in charge dashed Nancy's hopes by telling her that he was a new man on the job. The former agent had moved to California 2 years before. Nancy refused to be discouraged. Going outside, she interviewed half a dozen elderly taxi drivers whose cabs regularly provided service to and from the station. Not one of the men had driven a cab 10 years before, and therefore could give no information regarding the well-known dancer. If Floriana came to this town, it seems likely that someone would have recognized her, Nancy reflected. I'll not give up yet. At the town hall, where all records were kept, she had no better luck, and by 5:30 she was back at the hotel. May I look at your old registers? She requested the clerk in charge, telling him why she wanted them. Obligingly, he brought out one containing the names of guests who had stayed at the hotel 10 years before. Floriana's name was not among them, nor had anyone by the name of Flossie Johnson signed. If the dancer had ever registered there, it had been under an assumed name. Have you tried the tourist homes? The clerk suggested, attempting to be helpful. We have a dozen of them here. Several were in business 10 years ago. Thank you. That's a good suggestion, Nancy smiled. The following morning, she went to the office of the Board of Health, where she obtained a list of all guest houses in operation at the time of Floriana's disappearance. With renewed hope, she set out to interview the owners of the establishment still operating. The experience was not entirely pleasant, for upon one occasion, a woman, finding the girl did not want a room, slammed the door in her face. and nowhere did she obtain the desired information. It's just no use, Nancy thought, ringing the doorbell of the last house on her list. I'm at the end of my rope. There was a delay before anyone came to open the door of the little cottage. Finally, a kindly gray-haired woman appeared. If you're looking for a room, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, she said before the girl could speak. A young lady rented my only vacant one not 10 minutes ago. I'm not looking for a room, Nancy explained with a smile. I came to ask about someone who may have stayed with you some years back. I'll be happy to help you if I can. Nancy told her listener that she was trying to locate a woman who had come to the town several years ago. You say the young woman's name was Floriana Johnson? Inquired the woman. That was her stage name. She was also known as Flossie Johnson. Nancy waited, fully expecting her hopes to be dashed again. Instead, the owner of the tourist house smiled and pushed open the screen door. Come in, she invited cordially. I think I can help you.